The truth is, you don't need to be an extrovert or any specific personality type that some dude just made up a million years ago to have a lot of friends. What you need is to understand the basics of human interaction. And well, what am I gonna do? Well, I'm gonna teach you some of the basics that you need to make so many friends that you start questioning the purpose of even making new friends. And without further ado, let's begin. And firstly, of course, to begin with, let's say you meet a new person. A great way to know if this person is interested in having even a conversation with you is asking a question that they can ask you back. And so what I mean with this is, let's say you see someone at the library. If you see them reading a book, you might be asking, oh, what book is that? Is that a good book? Should I read it? And they might say, you know what, I don't know. Or they might say, you know what, this is a great book, I've read it 10 times. And basically, no matter what they answer, a natural reaction might be, oh, you seem to know a fair bit about books. What's your name, by the way? And the moment you ask their name, this is the key thing. They will either answer with their name, or they will answer with their name and then ask your name back. And if they just say their name and then stop, like, oh yeah, my name's John or Sarah, and then they say nothing else, that means they are not interested in a conversation with you. But if they say, oh, I'm John, what about you? What's your name? Or if they say, oh, I'm Sarah, and what's your name? That means they are interested in having a conversation with you. And so this is a great way to very quickly test if someone is willing to have a conversation with you and if they're willing to continue that conversation by asking them a question that is very natural for them to ask you back. So for example, asking their name or asking what book they're reading, and if you're also reading a book, it's very natural for them to ask, well, what about you? What are you reading? And there's a million different examples. But basically, that is a great way to tell if someone is even interested in having a conversation. And if they're not, then you can just say, oh, it was nice meeting you, John. Have a great day. And then walk away. And you'll save a lot of time. And now that you have found someone that is actually interested in a conversation, and you know that because they have asked you back a question that was very natural. And how do you now interact with this person? Well, of course, you have to be positive. People love positive people. I mean, think about it. If you think about the person that is like the most popular kid at your school or your workplace or whatever, they're always a positive person. The person who always complains and whines, boo-hoo, they're usually not very popular. Because who wants to hang around a person who complains all the time? And so be positive. And the positivity will spread, and people like that. And you know what? There's a great story. So I know a dude who got injured, and injured even fairly badly due to an accident. And you know what? Instead of saying, oh no, how horrible, oh no, boo-hoo you, and just being negative, you know what I did? I went and said, you know what? That's actually a fantastic story that now you can tell. And you know what? That's a cool story. Now you can tell it to everyone, and everyone's gonna be like, holy shit, this guy's got cool stories to tell. He's lived a life worth experiencing. He's gone through all these things. And you know what? The guy was like, oh, you know what? That's true. And when I found the positive, even in the negative, we connected instantly. All of a sudden, you have this amazing impression of the other person. They're willing to find positivity even in these negative situations, and people love that. And so be positive and people will absolutely love you. And the second thing that people absolutely love in a conversation is that you listen and you prove it. So a lot of people say, I'm a great listener. And it's like, okay. And then you start speaking. And then in their mind, they're like, yes, I'm listening. Yes, good. I know that I'm listening. I'm a good person. But how do I know that you are actually listening? You have to prove it. And so you have to learn to listen to people, but not just listen to them and then be like, hey, I listened. You have to prove it by repeating what they said in some way. So let's say this guy, the guy who got injured says, oh no, my leg got injured, this, that. Then I could say, oh, so your leg got injured. What happened? I proved that I actually listened to what he said because I repeated what he said. Maybe not word for word because that would take too long, but you repeated a part of what they said and then you ask a follow-up question about it. And that is how you prove that you actually listened to another human being, and people appreciate that. And most people are very bad listeners, not because they don't listen, but because they don't know how to prove to the other person that they listened. Because of course we cannot read each other's minds, and so I cannot know if you're thinking about this conversation or something completely different just by looking at you. So you have to always verbalize or in some action prove that you actually listened. And another really advanced technique is what I call target switching. Now it sounds like we're on a shooting range and about to shoot someone, but trust me, we're not gonna do anything like that. But let's look at the situation. You walk into the library again, and got John and Sarah and whoever there. And you go up and you see a group of people reading the same book and you're like, oh, what are you doing? You go and ask them, what are you doing? Now, whoever answers that question is who you should direct your next follow-up question to, or your answer to if they ask you a question. And this can switch constantly. So if there is a group of people of, let's say, 4 people, first you might ask, oh, what are you doing? What's this reading group here? And then they answer, oh yes, we're a reading group who's reading XYZ book and this, that. And then you ask another question, oh wow, is that book good? Should I read it? And then if someone else answers the question instead of the person who answered the first question, you should instantly direct your attention to that person. And then if you're gonna ask another question, ask it to the person who answered your question previously, or who literally just answered your question. So you should always switch your attention to the person who is answering your questions. And you should always ask the follow-up questions to the person who asked your questions. And so if there is someone who doesn't answer anything and who's completely silent all the time, don't give your attention to them, because most likely that is a person who is not interested in the conversation and not interested in having a conversation with you. But the person who is constantly talking to you, giving you answers to your questions, maybe answering, giving follow-up questions to you and so on, that is the person who you should direct your attention to and your questions to, and who you should talk with. Because by them talking to you, they are giving you, in a sense, the green flag to, hey, I'm willing to have a conversation. But if there is someone who is not willing to have a conversation, they're probably gonna stay silent. And once again, now if that silent person all of a sudden jumps up and starts talking to you, now they are the one. And now you do target switching again, and you switch them because they're the one who previously talked. So always talk to the person who is talking. Never try to, talk to people who are completely silent. That is another advanced technique, and there is a bit of nuance to this, of course, but in general, you should always just talk to the person who is talking, because that is the person who is most willing to talk to you. Now that we've gone through kind of the basics of how to know if someone is willing to have a conversation with you, what should you be like in the conversation? Be positive and listen and prove it. And then of course, if there's multiple people, then you should switch the person who you're talking to based on who is answering your questions and so on. And now that we've gone through those basics, where should you find people to even talk to? That's a big question. A lot of people are like, how can I even find people to talk to? And well, let me tell you, one of the best places to go is wherever you are interested. So if you really like reading books, you should go to the library. Now, I don't really read books, so I'm not gonna go to the library, even though I used it as an example. But I could, for example, talk to someone at the gym. I've met a few friends at the gym because we already share a common interest because we're both going to a place that interests us. So go to a place that interests you and you will find like-minded people who already share at least one interest. And that already increases the probabilities that you're gonna have some sort of chemistry and some sort of, connection, and you can get a lot of friends like that. But if you go to places that you hate, then don't be surprised when everyone you meet there has interests in things that you don't and has interest in things that you hate. So, for example, if you really hate Harry Potter, don't go to a Harry Potter book club and reading session to find your new best friend. Probably not gonna find the dude there. And trust me, finding good people is in many ways a numbers game. And so you just kind of have to go and test it out and test it out again and again and again and again. And then you know what? Eventually you get a match. Eventually you get someone who actually shares a chemistry connection with you, and you're like, damn, this is the dude. This is my new bro. Because it is a numbers game. Not everyone is going to be your friend, and that's fine. But there are people who are willing to be your friend as long as you keep trying and you're willing to put yourself out there. And you know what? The great thing is that once you get a few friends, the domino effect happens and you get referrals. So basically, you got friend, and now it's very easy to make friends with the friends of that friend. So you get a referral to their friends, and then you get another referral to those people's friends, and so on. And then the domino effect happens, and it's super easy to have a lot of friends and a big social group because you're constantly getting referrals from one person to another. Oh yeah, I met this great dude, we used to all go and hang out, and so on. And then you finally realize that now you have 1 billion friends and you don't know what to do about it. And here at the end, I want to give you a warning. Bad interactions are inevitable. There will be misunderstandings. Humans are not very good at communicating, which means that misunderstandings happen all the time. Trust me, has happened to me. And that's fine. These bad interactions are inevitable. They happen to everyone, and you should not let them discourage you. And what I will tell you is that everyone forgets them in a week. Literally. You might think that, oh no, I said something that actually pissed that person off a bit. I thought I was making a comment that was funny, but actually someone got pissed off. Well, trust me, in a week's time that person will not even remember that comment. They have forgotten about it, and nobody even cares that much. So bad interactions will happen. There will be misunderstandings. There will be all kinds of drama. That's life. And you just have to live with it and understand that it shouldn't discourage you. And the basic rule of social interactions overall is that be the guy who you want others to be to you. So you want to, your friends to probably send you a message every now and then and be like, oh, you want to hang out? So hey, maybe ask them to hang out. But maybe you don't want your friends to ask every 2 hours, hey dude, can you hang out? Oh, you can't. 2 hours later, hey dude, can you hang out? So have a bit of common sense. You probably want to ask people out to hang out, but probably don't do it every day or every 2 hours. So very simply, do to others what you want them to do to you, and don't do to them what you wouldn't want them doing to you. Very simple. And so with these tips, it should be quite likely and probable that you will find a few new friends that you can now go and be bros with. And so go out there, be brave, get some new social interactions going, and have a fantastic day.